Good evening, everyone. We're starting the webinar now. My name is Vimal Shukla, and I'm the co-founder and CEO of Family Pro Health. Once again, thank you so much for joining the webinar. As you know, the topic of today's webinar is nurturing longevity, embracing traditional wisdom, and modern nutrition for seniors. Yes, we have said it's for seniors, but the concept we are going to talk about is actually applicable for every age group. So please bear with us if we include some of the things that is applicable for. I still call myself young, so young person like me as well. So still not getting over calling myself a senior here. So okay, let's start the webinar. So we all want to live longer, right? But the important thing is that not only we need to outlive our life expectancy but we also need to enjoy better health, and so we can get more out of our life, right? Longevity to me does not mean merely having more birthdays, and as we slowly get weaker and have debilitating chronic conditions, we really can't enjoy the life, right? For some of us who have read about Tithonus in Greek mythology, he got his wish from gods for eternal life. But because he forgot about good health, his body continued to decay and he could not enjoy the life he had hoped for. Unlike him, I'm a firm believer that we can outlive our life expectancy by taking some steps now in our midlife, and also to focus on some nutritional biochemistry so we can use the technology and data to personalize our eating pattern. This is the philosophy at Family Pro Health that we founded this company on. At Family Pro Health, for some of you who don't know about it, we help people monitor 5 basic health parameters. So anyone with our free app and services can use the data to make some intelligent choices about what we want to eat or what we are eating, and how can we improve with the goal of reducing the chances of having a debilitating chronic condition later in our lives. As I said, I still call myself young. I'm still in my mid 50s. I always grapple with some questions myself, questions about what kind of foods I should eat, which will help me in slowing the loss of muscle mass, or foods that can help me improve my bone density, or foods that can help me improve my sleep as I age, right? Or for people who know me, I've been having some pain in the last 2 years. So what kind of foods can I include in my diet that can help me manage the pain as I grow older, right? So these are some of the snippets of the topics we are going to cover in our webinar today. And before I go ahead and introduce our expert on the call, I would like to request you to ask questions by posting on the chat. We would really want this to be a Q&A kind of a webinar. So please post your questions on the chat box that you see on your right. It's on my right here. And we would have our expert answer the questions as they come along. Joining me, so let me introduce Raksha Ji on the call. Raksha Shah, she is a seasoned registered dietitian, nutritionist, and also now the founder of Wise Bite Nutrition. With over 3 decades of diverse experience in her field, teaching at hospitals, running corporate wellness programs. She has also held many leadership roles in pharmaceutical and biotech industry. Her emphasis, like me, is on extending the health span. She also believes that the years spent being healthy, active, and vibrant are far more important than simply extending the lifespan. So let's talk about some of the things that we can do to be healthy, active, and vibrant. So with this introduction, I'd like to hand it over to Raksha Ji. Thank you so much, Raksha Ji, for taking the time today to talk about this. I hand it over to you right now. Please.
Thank you, Vimalji. Thank you very much. This is a wonderful introduction to the program which we have put together, and I'm really excited to join the group here, but also excited to share my knowledge, but most importantly, the experience I've gained over the last few years, understanding the basis of nutrition. And I loved the 2 words which you use, nutritional biochemistry, because I think that's so important. A lot of us think about food and food in general, right? So for example, You may think, okay, today I learned about blueberries from Dr. Google. So I'm going to start eating blueberries. But do you understand why blueberries are so important and what's inside the blueberry and why and how it impacts the food, impacts your body and your metabolism? That is the science which really is important that we communicate, and it should be communicated in a way that it's easy for every one of us to understand that food is important, but also what is in the food is also important, and also how you eat the food and how the food is digested and absorbed in order for us to live healthily. And again, I love it. It's not about longevity, extending our life, but it's about making sure that our health metrics are something which we will enjoy to live a very well, I would say, a well, hearty life and enjoy doing what we're doing, whether you're at the age of 50, 60, or 70. So, having said that, I always like to start an opening slide, and the one which I have is one which I think a lot of you will relate to, and you may have heard this quote, you are what you eat. And I've added a little bit more. Even more so, you are what your body absorbs and uses. So the important message here is think about nourishing your body wisely. And there are two paths. Either you can use the one which is on your left. If you get it's left on my screen. It's the lovely fruits and vegetables, and the other one is, of course, the typical American diet, right? Our hamburgers, our French fries. This is how, not majority, things are changing now, but going back 5 or 10 years ago, the food groups which you see on the right-hand side of the slide is what people really enjoyed eating. They still do, but now people are focusing more on the healthy foods and also plant-based diets. So this is a fun fact, and I'm really interested. Do you know what mushrooms are known for? We all know mushroom is a vegetable. They may have the fiber in it, but what else does a mushroom have that is very, very important, especially for all of us and for midlife and senior years? Put it in the chat.
Yeah, somebody did answer protein.
Oh, protein. Okay. Is there another one coming before I give you my answer? Okay, so mushrooms are very, very high in vitamin D. Did you know that?
Nope, not me.
Yeah. So mushrooms are very high in vitamin D. Fruits and vegetables don't have any vitamin D. It's mushrooms which have the vitamin D. That's why mushrooms are now becoming like one of the superfoods where, people are including mushrooms in their daily meals because of the vitamin D content of mushrooms. So mushrooms are really very good. Important thing to remember about mushrooms is that you really need to understand where you're buying your mushrooms from and also how you're cleaning it and then how you're incorporating that in your meals. But mushrooms have a lot of vitamin D in it. That's why they are now called the superfoods or the king of the foods, especially in the vegetable groups. So you learned something, right? Mushrooms are
Right.
high in vitamin D, right? Okay. So today, for the next 20 minutes, we're just going to focus on, and I'm going to tell you the story of nutrition. So why nutrition matters for healthy longevity. And it's again, what Vimal, you said, it's not about aging, but really nutrition should be the focus very earlier on because you have to think about it from a prevention perspective then rather than waiting till you're in your midlife and thinking about, oh my God, suddenly I have high blood pressure, or my blood sugars are high, or my bone densitometer tells me that I might be osteopenic. So it's better to think about nutrition earlier on because at the end of the day, it matters, especially in your midlife. And also, I'm going to talk about protein and also the importance of proteins for muscle and bone health and the importance of lifestyle medicine to manage your blood pressure, sugar, and cholesterol. And then end my my presentation with some practical nutrition hacks, especially when you think about South Asian nutrition plate. So we have four objectives.
Sure. Excited.
Yeah, what happens when we age? So there's so many things which happen as we transition through the different phases of our life. Starting in your 30s, we don't think about nutrition because we're so busy. We are busy building our careers, taking care of your family, having children. So the focus is never there, even though we think, oh, yeah, good food is important for our bodies, but we're so busy. But as you think about when you enter when you enter your 40s or your 50s or your 60s, things do change metabolically inside your body. And also a caloric intake changes, right? So when you're in your 30, you could eat whatever you can eat or as many calories, but you don't see a sudden weight gain. It may happen if you're eating the wrong foods. But as you start inching your way up to your 40s and your 50s, you realize, hey, wait, what happened? Suddenly my clothes don't fit well, or I'm starting to gain weight. And that's because the caloric needs change as a result of more body fat, which gets accumulated as your body changes. The metabolism also changes, but then especially in women, there are hormonal changes which also have an impact on your body composition. And women usually after perimenopause and also menopause and postmenopause tend to gain a little bit more fat and they start losing more of their lean muscle mass. The other thing is, it's not just, fat and muscle. Internal organs are also changing. And think about it, when you think about your GI tract, right? There's still muscles inside. So the muscles inside your GI tracts are also becoming a little weaker. So you can see a decrease in your motility, or it could be, your absorption changes. And what does that mean? That means that even though you're eating your fruits and your vegetables and your grains, the metabolic changes also are causing some of these nutrients to not to be absorbed effectively. So that's something you want to keep in mind. And that's why understanding nutrition, but also understanding what food is and how the food is delivered is very important. Your other organs also are changing. For example, the pancreas secrete less insulin and the cell becomes less responsive. And then because of all these metabolic changes, there are certain vitamins and minerals which are very, very important, which we need to be aware of that we do need to increase, especially in your 50s, 60s, 70, and beyond. And those are your vitamin B12, calcium, zinc, vitamin D, vitamin E, and folate. So this particular slide, it's just a slide, but there are three takeaway messages. One is intake reduces while nutritional requirements increase. People sometimes experience even weight loss during after 50 or 60, depending on how their body is changing, but also depending on their nutrition or dietary intake. And some of these things can also lead to nutritional deficiencies. And then there are also age-related changes and also the impact of those chronic diseases. So that's all what's going on. So it's very complex, but in this complexity, it's very, very important that nutrition does play a very important role to minimize some of these situations. Any questions before I move on? So this is just a very good visual, but it tells you all the organs which may be impacted midlife and beyond. So if you're looking at your pancreas, right? So sometimes, when you're in your 50s or 60s, especially in your 60s, it's beyond. Suddenly you go to your annual visits and you get your blood work done. And guess what? You get your blood work and say, oh my God, your A1C is high. But how did that happen? Right? That's your first time you're seeing an A1C being high. Then you go and then you look at your cholesterol and they said your cholesterol level is high. So what happened? So maybe there's some changes happening in your cardiovascular system, right? Cognitive decline. The cognitive decline and also depressions are very, very common. Again, this may be very subtle changes midlife, starting at 40, 50, or 60, but sometimes, especially in women, menopause and postmenopausal cognitive decline does happen, and you can see it. It's pretty, it's called like the fogginess in your brain. You forget a lot. It's because the female hormone, which is estrogen, declines. And that's why you see that a lot of women in their 50s and 60s do complain about, hey, you know what? I'm losing my mind, or I have fogginess, or, I forgot something. So those are the things which you really have to be careful. It's our main organs. It's your heart, your brain, and also at the end of the day, your muscles and your joints also get impacted. I had an interesting conversation with a client this morning. This particular client is in their, I think she's 68. And she said this is the first time she has experienced joint pain. And the joint pain and she's miserable, and it's nothing to do with her knee, but the joint pains are around her elbows and her shoulders. And she said it's so stressful because I feel stiff. What is happening to my body? I've never experienced that, right? So those are the things which do happen metabolically inside, and it just suddenly shows up and it appears, and then you don't know what's going on. But you just have to be more cognizant about that. Also, when you start thinking about 50 and 60, a lot of us are on polypharmacy, right? So either we're taking drugs to control our blood pressure, cholesterol level, either we are on a diabetic drug to control our blood sugar. So again, that's the polypharmacy. So you also have to think about it with so many medications, is how does nutrition play into this polypharmacy? And a lot of people, and especially in their 50s and 60s and the elderly, one of the education I give to them is that you really have to think about the medicines you're on, and also you have to think about the nutrition, because you have to be aware of the food and drug interaction, because there are certain medicines which interact with certain foods, and certain foods, because there are certain chemicals in there which interact with the medicine, and the bioavailability decreases. We also have bone loss, right? So what happens with bone fractures? And then we also lose muscle mass. So you are going to have balance issues that can lead to some injurious falls. And eventually you think about it from a disability. There's also this whole thing about your bladders, right? Everybody after 50, 60, or 70, there's going to be some weakness in your bladder as well. Because again, you think about it from a muscle perspective. So that's why nutrition is so important. Nutrition really has an impact on all these organs. And if you're not aware of some of the stats, these are pretty alarming. So after the age of 30, your muscle mass declines by 3 to 8% per decade. And it accelerates, your muscle loss accelerates after the age of 60. Your bone density decreases and increasing the risk of fractures. And for women, can lose up to 1 inch of height by the age of 70 due to bone loss. I don't know if there are women on the webinar, but I would be very
Yes,
interested
we do have.
in understanding if they've seen any changes in their height, because that's something very easy to notice. And then nutrition is also important in the prevention of chronic diseases, especially when they start creeping up midlife and beyond. So it's your heart, it's your brain, and also your gut. All those organs are going through changes. So we really have to be cognizant of that. And that's why that prevention earlier on is very, very important. But nutrition, and I'm not saying you need to start early, even if you learn about it now in your 50s and 60s and 70s, it can still help you improve your health longevity.
Got it. So Rakshaji, there's a question that came up, but I think we can take it at the end. It's the question really is, what are some common nutritional deficiencies? So I think we talked about the issues we are,
Yeah, I'm going to
in the last
present that
slide.
later
So
on.
now,
Yeah.
but to correlate that the deficiencies, the issues with what nutritional deficiency is actually causing them would help, and especially with elders of South Asian heritage. So that's the question. And yes, I think some of it you will probably cover, but I just wanted to bring it up to your attention.
I'll cover that in the next few slides. I just want
Sure.
to go some of the basic slides because there's an understanding of what happens to your body and why nutrition plays an important role.
Okay.
So the stage, and again, this is it's one of the best slides, and I get a lot of compliment when I use this slide, is because it shows you it's a dramatic, right? We don't realize at the age of 30 or 40 that we are losing our muscle mass, right? Because we're so busy. But this is what happens. It's a decline, and it starts so early. And then when you look at your bones, the same thing, right? At the age of 50 and 60, both the muscle loss and the bone loss is rapid, and that causes the height reduction and also increases the fracture risk. Right?
Sure.
And this is just a schematic of the difference between a man and a woman. Like you see in women, the bone loss is very progressive, whereas men, at least, you don't go downhill so quickly after menopause, right? So it's for women, they have to be very, very careful. And the question you just asked me about nutrition deficiency, right? So one of the most common nutrition deficiency, especially in the senior years, is vitamin B12. And especially for people who are on vegetarian or vegan or plant-based, that's when and you know why vitamin B12 shows up as a deficiency? Because remember earlier on, I mentioned that your changes happen in the gut, right? So when there's less acid in the gut, and that happens, your acidity level goes down in your gut. Vitamin B requires an acidic environment for the absorption to take place in your intestines. And when you have less of that, that's why you see that the vitamin B12, which may be available, again, plant-based diets don't have a lot of vitamin B12. Vitamin B12, the best source are animal protein. That's why you see that deficiency, especially in South Asian B12 deficiency does rise to a level where we either have to take a supplement or we have to be cognizant about that.
Okay. Thank
So I
you.
hope I answered that question. Yeah.
Yeah. And especially on that vitamin B12.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. And then the importance of muscle mass, right? There's a lot of talk about muscle mass. And also, the key takeaway from this slide is there's so many aspects, or when you look at the bubbles, there are so many elements here which have an impact on your muscle mass. It could be hormonal changes, it could be lifestyle factors, it could be chronic inflammation, it could be malnutrition, right? Not everybody's healthy or has good weight. So there are some seniors, and even I've seen some people in their 50s can be classified as malnutrition. Interestingly, in United States, and I know I do it, but also when I used to work in the hospital, anybody who was 65 and over, we actually do give them what's called a mini malnutrition test to make sure that they're not malnourished. And they're very simple because we have special measurements which we do around the arm of the patient just to make sure that the client, the patient, or the consumer is not malnourished, and that's a very important one of the steps which, as a nutritionist, we're able to do and conduct that mini malnutrition status test. And again, if family members are in nursing home, that's required. Okay, so I just wanted to talk to you about that. And then you also see a very decline in your neural function as well. So all these things happening in your body inside has an impact on your muscle health. And if you don't take care of your muscles earlier on, what happens is you see that word sarcopenia, that's what we get when we age, when we are in our 60s, 70. And that's what physicians are also worried about. And I don't know if you go to your physician, I think especially in your 60s or 70s or even 80s, a geriatric PCP will ask you this question: are you having enough protein in your meal? Are you doing some strength training exercises? Because they want you not to get that condition called sarcopenia. Right?
So actually, there's a question here because you talked about malnourished
Yeah.
test that you talked about the arm thing, right? So
Right.
there's a question that it says malnourished usually means lack of food in a common man's term. So is there any other definition? Can you please elaborate on what exactly do we mean by malnourished? Is it just lack of food or something else as well?
Yeah, so malnutrition is not lack of food. That's a great question, by the way, whoever asked, thank you. So malnutrition is defined as, again, lack of food. Food could be as in underdeveloping countries where children don't get food, they're malnourished, right? But
Mhm,
under malnourished, there are two conditions. One is called kwashiorkor and one is called marasmus.
mhm.
Kwashiorkor is protein deficiency, and marasmus is overall caloric, right? So when a person has malnutrition and they're classified under the kwashiorkor, they usually have distended stomachs.
Okay.
Okay, so that's one. And then the other condition, marasmus, is just the overall fat and muscle is down. So you're really your body's just bones, right? So those are
Okay.
the two definitions of malnutrition. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay.
Okay. And I love this slide because prevention is so important. We never think about prevention, right? But it's really important that we focus on that because that also is one of the pillars. Vimal, when you talked about earlier on during your opening, it's about the health longevity. So think about everything I say today from a prevention, but also make sure if you're not in that prevention, but you are in that phase of management because you're already on treatment, you can still do better.
Got it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So let's talk about nutrition, right? So again, when you think about food in general, right? Right now we think about food as food or nutrients, right? So simple. To keep it simple, I've classified the food into two groups. It's called macronutrients and micronutrients. Your macronutrients are the most important. Those are your protein, your fats, and your carbohydrates. Those are your macronutrients, which you need. You need macronutrients every day in order for us to have a sustainable energy every day. But your body needs to function. They need the glucose and they need the energy. So your what is protein? It could be plant proteins, right? So for all of us on this webinar, plant proteins, right? We are vegetarians. We eat a lot of plant-based protein. So that's a good thing. Healthy fats. What do you mean by healthy fats, right? There's a lot of misinformation floating around about fats, right? Oh, we can't eat fats because fat has a lot of calories and it's not good for us, right? But fat is also very, very important for us, especially when you think about muscle mass, you think about keeping your bones strong, but overall, even for mental alertness, but for your mental nutritional status, fats are very important. And the good, healthy fats are even more important to focus on. So, what are some of the good, healthy fats? Um, you can see it in the visual, but I can speak to that. Most of the one which is really important and the one which I like, but also it is supposed to be the powerhouse. I call it the Amazon fruit. It's the avocado. Now, the avocado is classified either as a fruit or a vegetable. So the avocados are rich in monounsaturated fat, but they also have the fiber and they also are rich in all of the vitamins and minerals, and including they have a little bit of the calcium, they have a little bit of zinc, they have a little bit of magnesium. So it's really the powerhouse. And the current recommendation is have a quarter avocado, and especially for people who want to control their blood sugars or they want to work on lowering their blood sugar, avocado, a quarter slice every day will help you manage your blood sugars better.
So Rakshaji,
So
my wife and I always argue on this point. She's a big proponent of avocados, right? And when I was growing up, I used to hear the term, and my doctor always told me an apple a day keeps the doctor away, right? So has the maxim changed now from having an apple a day to having an
yeah, having an
avocado a day?
avocado a day,
I-
absolutely.
Is that what you would say now?
Yes, I would
Okay.
promote avocado. And another reason why I promote healthy fats and especially avocados is again with the fiber, right? So when you think about blood sugars, right? When you think about managing your type 2 diabetes, right? It's very important that you eat foods which are high in fiber and have the good quality of fat because when you eat avocado, it's going to take a longer time for the digestion. It's slower. Whereas if you eat like a banana or a glass of orange juice, it quickly converts into glucose and your sugar spike. Avocado won't let you do that.
Okay.
All
Okay.
right. And the same thing goes with nuts. Nuts also are very, very good. Nuts have the fat. They are fat, but they also have protein and they also have magnesium. Some have selenium. They have zinc, calcium. So again, those are powerhouses under the plant nutrition, the plant food group.
Got
And
it.
fiber, again, fiber is very important. And I usually collapse fiber with complex carbohydrates. And carbohydrates also get a very bad name, especially in the United States. Everybody thinks you can eat chapatis, you can eat rice. Well, if you or you can eat, again, you have to think creatively. You have to make sure you're not just eating chapati, but if you combine your chapatis with your dal and you make sure you're having some healthy fat with it, and then you're having some vegetables with that, that's balanced. And
Hmm.
that's going to have a better control on your blood sugar levels than eating just, some people just have chapati and pickle, right? That could be a diet by itself, or whatever that Indian pickla and pickle, right? Or something like that. Yes, I just wanted to
Yeah.
make sure the macronutrients are important, and you can still be, being a vegetarian, you can still enjoy having healthy macronutrients using your plant protein.
Yeah.
And the
And actually,
micro, yeah, go ahead.
sorry, before you go to micro, so and this question came to me earlier when I was talking to one of my Bengali friend. He is big into, Bengalis are big into eating fishes, right?
Right,
So he is of the opinion that having the right kind of fish actually takes care of this as well. So would you want to comment on that too? I'm sure he will be listening to, maybe he's joined the call, but he may be listening to the recording later on as well. So maybe something on whether to include fish as part of your healthy diet. Would you think something like, would
yeah.
you agree with him?
Yeah, yeah. So for, especially for Bengalis, right? They do like their fish.
Yes.
And if I have to recommend an animal, fish is not classified as animal protein. It's really under the flexitarian. So people do eat, fish. Fish is very healthy. It's like the Mediterranean diet.
Hmm.
And yes, the fat in the fish is also very healthy. It's got the omega-3. So for Bengalis, fish, if they include fish in their diet, that's also excellent source of protein for them. And I'm okay with that because culturally you have to be cognizant that fish, that's what they were been raised, and fish is good. So fish, as long as you're getting the fish from the right, uh, I would say the water or the right pool, and it's not contaminated, fish is very healthy. Very,
Okay.
very healthy. Yeah. It also has the omega-3 fatty acids, right? So it's the good fats in it. And fish tends to be leaner
Hmm.
uh, than the red meats. And red meats in general are really bad. They're also very high in, have a higher acidic content, all the animal protein. And that's also why, people with kidney disease are now transitioning. And there's a big movement that it's
Hmm.
better for you to be on a plant base because of the acidic nature of the animal protein food. So the plant base
Hmm.
has a little bit more alkaline type of an environment or nutrients in it. And that's why they are moving towards encouraging patients with kidney disease to at least try uh, plant-based protein 3 or 4 times a week instead of, and diminishing the intake of their red meats, poultry, and turkey,
Got it.
right?
Thank
Okay.
you.
Okay, welcome. And then on the macronutrients, and I think this question came up again for all of us, especially if you are in your 50s, 60s, 70s, it's very, very important that these are the ones which are important we need to learn about. The magnesium, the vitamin B12, iron deficiency, again, in women after menopause, that's rare. But, I still want to keep it there. I've kept it there on the slide. It's because there are some men who do have low iron. So I do like, talking about it because again, we don't eat animal protein. So if you're iron deficient, where are you going to get the iron from, right? And even though spinach, they think spinach has the Popeye arms, you see that has iron in it. Spinach does have iron, but importantly, if you recall when I said it's important to understand how to prepare your spinach. Most of the iron which is available in fresh spinach is bound and it's not available to you. So you really need to cook it, but you have to blanch it very quickly in water. Take the spinach out, and then you can lace it with lemon juice. You have to add lemon juice in your spinach because that releases the oxalate, and that iron is more available to you.
Okay.
Okay.
Good. Good.
And then your vitamin D and vitamin K. And again, vitamin D, the best source is sunshine. So if you can get your vitamin D through sunshine, that's fantastic. And now there are supplements which have vitamin D and vitamin K. I just want to make sure we talk about vitamin K here because a lot of people think, oh, I'm taking vitamin D and K. But you have to go back and look at your polypharmacy. If you're on anticoagulant drugs, or if you're taking any drugs which have a contraindication with vitamin K, then buy the supplement which just has vitamin D. So I just wanted to make sure we talk about that. All right.
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Hey, Raksha, I had a question since you brought up the spinach thing, right?
Yeah.
Especially raw spinach. So, as you know, I like my afternoon tea or coffee, right? And I do like to have any kind of Indian snacks, be it bhujia or something, right? And what I've read is that eating spinach actually helps in curbing that kind of snacking, right? I mean, would you want to comment on that? Do you think that helps? If I have raw spinach to curb my snacking habit?
Yeah. So the question is about whether raw spinach will help your your
Hmm.
cravings, correct? Yeah,
Cravings.
especially in the
Yeah.
afternoon. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So raw spinach, right? It's classified as a vegetable. And vegetables, and especially spinach, right? It's a green leafy vegetables. It's very high in fiber, right?
Hmm.
So when you have any vegetables or any vegetables or fruits which are high in fiber, and there are more, all of them are, then what you're going to do is it automatically will help you feel better because you're not going to digest it. It takes a long time to digest the
Okay.
fiber in your
Hmm.
system. So this way your cravings will be diminished. But importantly, remember, I just mentioned that when you have your raw spinach, make
Hmm.
sure you put some lemon juice in it because raw spinach, whatever vitamins and minerals you have in your raw spinach, is not that readily available. You have to lace it with vitamin C.
Got it. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah, but yes, absolutely. Give it a try. You can even saute it and you can have it. I can have, I'm pretty creative with my approaches with some of this. So you can talk to me. I do make spinach with, chickpeas. You take chickpeas and you do an air fryer of your chickpeas with some masala and then
Hmm.
throw in your chopped spinach on it with a little bit of lemon juice. That's a great snack.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Good. Thanks for the tip. Learn
Okay.
something.
Yeah. And then, I get this question a lot, but I just wanted to throw something because we talk about sarcopenia, we talk about muscle, we talk about the importance of having protein, and protein is really very important. When I started, when took all my certification courses, and especially the one on geriatric nutrition, this was an eye opener for me because the recommendation for optimal dietary intake for anybody 65 and above is 1.2 to 2 grams per kilogram per day. And it's high for elderly adults. Currently, for us, normal, like anybody 50 and below, or even 65 and below, the current recommended dietary allowance is zero point 0.8 grams per kilogram per day. So, do you see the notice that they've bumped it up for senior years?
Hmm.
And 38% of the adult men and 41% of the adult women in the United States cannot even get 1.2 to 2 grams of kilogram per day. That's your optimal intake. It's very difficult, right, to get the amount. Like if I have to calculate, I need about 90 grams of protein a day. So how am I going to get that from a vegetarian diet? That's the question, right?
Hmm.
How do
Yeah.
we get that? So I'll talk to you a little bit about that, but those are the guidelines. And I just look at guidelines and I don't, this is a range, but you also have to think about it. Think about your body, think about your height, your current weight, and your body frame, because those numbers can be adjusted. So that's how you have to think about it from a personalized nutrition. That's why I always tell people, go when you see things on Dr. Google, it is for the general public. but you also have to think about yourself as who you are and how you are made up before you apply any of these recommendations. All right.
Got it.
And then,
Thank you.
the other optimal intake is increasing your complex carbohydrates as adults. The recommendations are for everyone to have 25 to 35 grams of fiber a day that comes from your complex carbohydrates. So it's vegetables, whole grains, could be fruit. And again, that number is also very high. So you try to aim for it. But if even if you can do 20, that's an accomplishment because those are difficult numbers to really aim for because you have to eat a lot of vegetables. It's like a cow chewing a lot of vegetables throughout the day. Yeah. And then hydration, one very important takeaway message for all our seniors who may be on the call is making sure that you stay hydrated. It's very, very important because as we enter the senior years, people don't focus on hydration because you don't feel the thirst, right? And a lot of people get dehydrated. So it's important that you think about hydration and always keep your mug of fluid of water and sip on it. The recommendation is to make sure you get 8 cups. 1 cup is equivalent to 8 ounces per day. So you think about it from 64 ounces. So you can just get a container like this, fill it up, and sip on it. But very important to stay hydrated because you want to stay that way to make sure your body's functioning well, but you also want to make sure that your body needs the water. All right. And then the fat, we talked about it, and it's important that you have 3 to 4 servings a day. And I've already given the measurements here, a quarter of an avocado or 2 tablespoons of olive oil or a quarter cup of almonds or any kind of nuts. All right. And then what is a balance? So we talked about all nutrition. So what should your plate look like at the end of the day? And the message here is that every meal should be complete like this. So your plate should have a whole grain, should have a healthy protein, should have fruit and a vegetable, right? So for breakfast, the recommendation for breakfast is start your breakfast with a healthy dose, I would say, of protein. A lot of the recommendations now, and even if you read all the evidence-based studies, are pointing that at least try to get 30 grams of protein for your breakfast in the morning. So between 20 to 30 grams. So how are you going to do that, right? So you can do a lot of things to get those 30 grams of protein in the morning. Always start your morning with a good amount of protein in the morning. That will also help you control your weight later on. So it's the balance, right? So if you look at this plate, the vegetable has the biggest pie, right? So fill your plate with a lot of great vegetables, followed by a healthy protein. And I forgot to put tofu here, but healthy protein is really more around, for plant-based, it's our beans, our dals, our nuts, tofu. Those are all classified as great protein sources for plant-based. For people who enjoy fish, fish is also included in that healthy protein. But again, so vegetables followed by healthy protein. Look at the pie. It's a little bigger, followed by your whole grains. And your whole grains would be like brown rice, your whole wheat bread, pita bread, or any of the, and then you want to limit your intake of white rice and white bread. So anything complex grain, meaning it has whole wheat in it, it has, and it's not overly processed. And then fruit and then your water. So and making sure you also include your healthy oils. So this is what a balanced healthy plate will look like, and you want to aim for that. All
Yeah.
right.
Actually, there's a question here. Since you're on that slide, I thought maybe this is appropriate
Okay.
time to ask
Sure.
that. The question was or is, can you give some foods for managing blood pressure? And it also adds here, or also hypertension in particular. So if I look at this balanced healthy plate, do you want to point out which of these categories would actually help in managing BP, or do you want to just extend this to some other
I
answering
can
that
just,
question as well?
that's a great question, and I'll just address it up here because it's
Mhm.
important to look at the plate, right? So in order for you to to control your blood pressure, it's very important that you include a lot of the fiber, right? Fiber foods, so it's your vegetables. And then focus on making sure there's whole grains in there, but then also the healthy meats, the healthy plant proteins like beans. Avoid eating cold cuts or any processed meats or processed cheese. Cheese is not listed here, and I don't know if anybody caught this, but where is the dairy, right? The dairy is not here,
Yes.
right? So dairy is also another group which falls into the healthy protein section. And when you think about cheese, cheese is also processed, right? So the cheese which we eat is processed. We don't eat those hard, fancy cheeses, right? So the processed cheese has salt, and that if you're consuming a lot of cheese, that's not going to give you a better control of your blood pressure. For the vegetables, the vegetables which will help you control your blood pressures, as long as you know how to cook them and they're not overcooked. Beets have nitric oxide in it, and nitric oxide plays a pivotal role in controlling your blood sugars as your blood pressure. All right.
Got
And
it.
then whole grains. Whole grains have magnesium in it. They have zinc in it, especially magnesium. Magnesium is a mineral, which is also important for blood pressure control.
Thank
And
you.
you find that in nuts as well. So again, and then the important thing is it's also making sure that you're not using a lot of the processed foods, and especially the Indian snacks. They are loaded with a lot of salt, and that can also cause increase in blood pressure. Yeah.
Got it.
So you do need some salt, but be mindful how much salt you're using. Yeah.
Sure. And actually, I think I see here you mentioned about healthy oils, right? In
Yeah.
our South Asian cooking, we fry quite a few things, right?
Yeah.
So would you recommend, like on the slide, you're talking about olive oil and canola oil. So is that a good substitution for our own cooking fats that we normally use? Or
Yes.
yeah,
No, that's another great question. So under healthy oils, and again, this is from the Harvard Medical School slide, which needs to be updated because now canola oil is out.
yes.
Oil which needs to be up there is really grapeseed oil or avocado oil. So think about it. Olive oil, you cannot cook with high temperature because it denatures. But when
Hmm.
you think about the cooking oils, the grapeseed oil and also the avocado oil can take high temperatures. So you can cook with that, but you can also fry with that.
Okay, got it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
But I would not do canola oil. I would not do safflower oil. I would not do any of the other oils. I only, and again, my preference is because I know a lot about these oils. The safest oil are your grapeseed oil, and buy the good quality grapeseed oil, but also avocado oil.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm. And then we talk about nutrition, right? But at the end of the day, you also want to make sure that regular exercise is incorporated into your into your daily living. It's important to movement is so, so important. Keep moving because, going back to even your sleep, right? If you are sitting all day, you're not moving, you may be eating healthy, but if you don't move, that's when you get up and then you're stiff and you can have joint pains and muscle. So keep your body moving. And you can do small little things, but at the end of the day, any movement, walking, getting up, going up the flight a couple of times, or even doing 10 squats near your desk will help you, or keeping light weights because it helps you improve your blood sugars, it helps you to improve your blood pressure, your body composition. And what I mean by body composition is your muscle to fat ratio. So the more iron or the more strength training and the more weights you use, you'll gain more muscle mass and less of the fat. All right. And
Got
then
it.
everything else, at the end of the day, good nutrition and exercise is the key. It has such great positive benefits for all of us as we age. And it really does help you with making sure your health metrics at the end of the day are perfect. All right.
Thank you.
Okay. And then I wanted to this slide is because I know we talk about modern nutrition versus the traditional nutrition. And there's a lot of emerging trends in nutrition, especially around spices and gut health, right? Now, spices we all know about, right? A lot of the Western new diet culture includes a lot of the turmeric in every damn thing, ginger in everything. Every supplement you see in the market has turmeric, right? But we've been using turmeric and anciently, in India, and it is supposed to be very, very good and very beneficial, right? Because it helps with the joint, with the inflammation, And overall, turmeric is also it's just one of the wonder spices. But then there's also a lot of noise around probiotics and prebiotics. And probiotics and prebiotics are very important for your gut health. And these two are very important, especially let's talk about probiotics. Probiotics are really like active bacteria, right? So think about sources of probiotics. Yogurt, dahi. Dahi is an excellent source of probiotic because it's fermented. So anything which is fermented and has live bacteria, that's healthy for us and for our gut. The same, and prebiotics is the fiber. So the prebiotics actually provides the nourishment for the probiotics to grow in your gut. So that's why you need a combination of both. Yeah.
Got it.
So
And
this is
and
that's the latest science. And I don't know if anybody who takes antibiotics now, they always, your pharmacist or your physician will always recommend a probiotic with an antibiotic.
got it.
Yeah.
So, Raksha, I think there's a very good question that has come up here. So, I think we talked about blood pressure. We did talk about glucose, liver, I would say, and gut health and all of that. We did not touch upon kidney health. So there's a question on, can you talk a little bit about chronic conditions like kidney health? So what can we do, especially when you talk about prevention, to ensure that our kidneys stay healthy, and what kind of nutrition actually helps in that is the question here. And I think there's one more that just popped up is on fatty liver as well. I just mentioned fatty liver, so maybe
Yeah, no,
liver and kidney, what do you have to do to take care of them?
absolutely. So let me start just give you just a quick overview about kidney disease, right? So kidney disease is defined as, there are ranges, right? There are stages in kidney disease. So there's one from stage 1 to 3B and A. And then you have, stage 4 and of course dialysis, right? So let's talk about the stages from 1 to 3A. So how do you prevent kidney disease, right? Again, the prevention is that you want to make sure if you have blood pressure, keep that blood pressure in control. Honestly, that's
Okay.
such an important thing, is to keep that blood pressure. If you have blood pressure and you are overweight, make sure you start getting that weight down. And people are confused this weight, right? You get on the scale and you say, oh, I lost 2 pounds, or I'm losing fat. But as we grow old, and especially 50s, 60s, and 70, it's not the fat which you visibly see. The fat which is killing us is the visceral fat, the fat which is around our organs, which we cannot see visibly, right? So
Hmm.
that's the fat people are talking about. That's the fat which women get around their bellies. That's the visceral fat. And that's very difficult to eliminate unless we start thinking about it from a prevention, right? So for kidney disease, in order for you to prevent going into either stage 1, stage 2, or stage 3, is to start thinking about controlling that blood pressure, controlling that weight. And also, if you are a heavy meat eater, transition into a plant-based type of a diet. And the transition should be there because, as mentioned earlier, any of the meat products, they're very acidic. And that acidic environment causes the kidneys to even react more. So that's why you want to transition into a plant-based, which would be something like, making sure plant-based, meaning they're still getting their plant protein, but again, it's in the form of plant-based. So it could be our lentils, our dals, and things like that, and keeping that protein intake down, right? So the guidelines which I'd mentioned to you, 1 to 2, will that be applicable if somebody is even in the early stages of CKD? My recommendation would be to keep them at 0.6 to 0.8, depending on their kidney disease parameters like EGFR and creatinine. So
Hmm.
I'm conservative when it comes to kidney disease. I don't even go with those 1 to 2.0 grams per kilograms, because that is not appropriate for a patient who has kidney disease, especially if you want them to not progress. You want to make sure. Now, if a patient is on dialysis, right? So hemo versus CAPD, continuous. If they're on continuous peritoneal dialysis, they're losing a lot of protein, so they need more protein than the person who's on hemodialysis, right? But again, the quality of protein is very, very important. The quality, what I mean by the quality of protein, is that they need to make sure that their food is balanced. right? And if they have diabetes on top of it, you also want to make sure that the food which they're getting is balanced with good carbohydrates, but it has the protein in it and the good type of fat in order to keep their blood sugars in control, but also to keep their kidney functions going, the kidney functions in control as well. So that's my in a quick nutshell. And if
Yeah,
that person wants to talk to me, happy to provide additional details.
yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I think is the same thing applicable for fatty liver as well? Because fatty liver, again, I'll let you answer that question as
Yeah,
well.
so for
So,
fatty liver, you just have to be careful, right? Again, it may be related to if the patient is overweight or if the client is overweight, so if they have more fat in their body. But
mhm,
importantly, no alcohol for fatty liver. The alcohol has to go, but also the type of fat. So if their current consumption is very typical, like that American diet I showed, then they have to make adjustments because you can't eat that kind of fat because it's going to impact your liver.
got it,
Yeah. Yeah.
got it.
So
Thank you.
weight and the type of fat
Type
and
of
no
fat.
alcohol. Yeah, three things. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. And at the end of the day, if you look at any of the evidence-based research, every research these days are pointing towards, and it's backed by US News World Report, which recently published their 50 best diets for the US consumer, but also all the peer-reviewed studies are pointing towards the benefits of whole foods. And what I mean by whole foods is that your plate has to be nutrient dense, so your food is better available. All the nutrients and minerals are available to your body instead of overcooking it and over processing things. And if you eat that way, you don't need all these supplements, which crazily being advertised. Now we have supplements for everything, right? So people are not thinking. So the best way to get your vitamins and minerals is making sure that you're eating whole foods which are cooked well and they're also nutritionally dense.
Got it. Thank you.
And my last few slides, this is a very important slide because it's not just about nutrition, so it's a two-pronged approach, right? You talk about all this and collapse it into lifestyle medicine. And the one which shows the pretty picture of all the vegetables, that's about the nutritional biochemistry, right? There's a reason why we have such beautiful colors on our fruits and vegetables, because they are filled with all the important phytonutrients, which are chemicals which do good for our body. And then you combine it with the lifestyle medicine, like good social support, sleep. Sleep is very important. If you don't get your 6 to 7 hours of sleep, that does have an impact on everything we talked about, from blood pressure, blood sugar, and weight. Very important. And then, of course, avoiding any kind of risky behaviors, which we don't do, but I had to put that slide, stress management and exercise. So at the end of the day, if you think about yourself and if you put yourself into this two-pronged approach, there I am pretty confident that if you continue making small changes, you cannot make changes overnight, but it has to be baby step. Those habits, good habits, eventually will increase your health longevity. And that's what you want. You just don't want the age, but you want to make sure you're healthy and all your health metrics are really good. All right. And I would like to end this presentation today because it's not just about nutrition, but it's really about looking at it from a holistic, integrated ecosystem, right? So it's a wellness ecosystem, which you have built, which is excellent. Like, you provide all the monitoring vitals, but you also have a physician on board. And of course, the client is in the center. They are the ones who really need to be nurtured. And then you have the nutritionist for now, which the three outside rings, the big rings, can really be communicating with each other, because you want to know if the labs come in and if the blood sugar is high. At least you have a nutritionist on call and say, okay, I can talk to the family and see what type of food or what their nutrient intake has been for that day, because that could impact a high blood sugars as well, or even high blood pressures. So this is the way I think you need to build a wellness ecosystem, because you cannot work individually. You have to look at it from a holistic perspective. And Vimal, please add on, but this is the best I thought.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, this is great, Lakshya. Thank you
Yeah.
so much.
And I want to
for
thank, if Dr. Shah is on, I want to thank Dr. Shah for
his
giving this
on.
idea and giving the bubble idea. If he's still there, I don't know if he's still
Yeah,
there.
I think I see him there. So
Yeah.
thank you both. And
Yeah. And my last take home message for everyone is your body isn't giving up on you. Think about that. It's asking for more love, attention, and the right nourishment. And
yeah,
that's it.
thank you. Thank you. Yeah, no, just going back to the previous slide, the bubble slide that
Yeah.
Raksha was talking about, right? So,
Yeah.
as I mentioned earlier, the Family Pro Health, we help you monitor your vitals. And once you monitor your vitals, you can easily share those vitals with your physician and your nutritionist. And of course, you can extend it to share it with your family members as well. So, idea here is that this becomes kind of a shared ecosystem. There are people around you, including your family members, that will help you in this journey to ensure that you take the right decisions about your nutrition based on some data that is personalized only for you. So that's where we Family Pro Health comes in and is able to help you. Uh, Again, thanks, Rakshaji, and
It was a
as we all
pleasure.
heard
Yeah.
today, she is so passionate about this topic, and the key for us is to adopt a practical, evidence-based nutrition and
Yeah.
adopt an holistic lifestyle solution so that we can prevent or minimize chronic diseases such as high blood pressure, the type 2 diabetes, and heart diseases, CKD. And I mean, we talk about a lot of things in this webinar. We want to make sure that we nourish our bodies with the right kind of food. And of course,
Absolutely.
Raksha also talked about balancing it with our lifestyle, with the right sleep, with the right kind of exercises, being stress-free. So, I mean, all of those are important at every age and at every stages of our life. So, with
Yeah.
this, I would like to thank you for taking the time to attend the webinar today. And please send us your feedback. I'm sorry I didn't ask you for any other question, but if you have any questions
Yeah.
or feedback,
Yeah.
please do reach out, and we'll be happy to be in touch with you. And if you have some suggestions for us to do other webinar topics, please feel free. Our contact was in the invite you received, and uh, so again, thanks for the time, and thanks for staying with us engaged on this webinar session. We really appreciate this. Thanks,
Thank
Akshat.
you, Vimal, for inviting me. This was wonderful. And I want to thank all the audience who have joined. Thank you for those wonderful questions. And it was a pleasure. And if you have any questions, please reach out. Happy to address them at individual level, individually.
Thanks. Thanks, guys.
Thanks. Go and have
Bye
a good
then.
evening. Yeah,
Yeah, you too.
bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.